I tried to start this video a little bit ago and got interrupted immediately. I think maybe I was covering something that I'm not supposed to cover. I don't know. I was thinking about believing in self, right? How do you get people to believe in themselves? I mean, you're paying for a coach. Are you paying for somebody to try and push you forward every day? Because, I mean, unless your heart, right, being driven comes in here internally. So that doesn't come from the outside. Now you can make somebody aware of where, you know, what maybe they should do. But I mean, if I can't help somebody within 30 minutes and let them know, hey, be creative. What do you want to create? Do you want to make music? Do you want to start a YouTube channel? Do you want to read the collective psychic energy? What do you want to do? Do it. And if you don't want to do it, that's fine too. But paying me to tell you to do something is kind of pointless, right? I mean, really, what are you selling? So, I mean, like, there's lots of marketing out there. Right? You can pay for visibility. That's something that, you know, that's how we get noticed in society, right? We a lot of times pay for visibility, or we create content that naturally attracts an audience that feels like they resonate with. But I see a lot of stuff about coaching dying, and I just read an article where somebody said, because they were responding to that thing, somebody was writing something about how coaching was dying, and it's like uh, looking at that really negatively. Why is that negative? Everything dies. There's always there's always a trend of something, and then that trend dies, and then something new comes out of that. That's part of nature. We're not going to have coaches for the rest of uh, evolution. Please God, say no. If we constantly have to coach each other and pay each other to coach each other for, I don't know what we're actually coaching, to tell you the truth, because you can't coach belief. People's belief systems change over time as they're serving one another and figuring out what it is, how to take care of their own needs, right? So if we're not working together to build a society that we all want to live in, then I mean, coaching is a way to not do that. We could sell each other advice every day, right? It's like, I think you should get up in the morning and drink coffee before you work out. Okay, great. Is that good advice? Probably not. Whose advice are you paying for, right? And do they have this ultimate truth? Have they reached enlightenment? I would ask. That would be the first question I'd ask if you're paying for any services out there. If it's not like some kind of advertising service, uh, any kind of coaching service, the first question you want to ask somebody is, have you reached enlightenment? I mean, I'll be the first one to tell you, well, in some areas, yes, but my one point of enlightenment is the fact that I am, will never not to be ignorant. So, I mean, what what do you want to pay me for? Ignorance? You can pay me for. I mean, that's where unconditional love comes, right? I mean, that's where you really can fall into unconditional love and say, well, I love myself, and we can choose to create something together and see how that works. And if it doesn't work, then we'll learn about each other in the process. That's all you can really do. Paying to one person to advise another person who hasn't reached some point of enlightenment, if they're not a light being floating in front of me, right? Realistically, you know, or maybe they can witness a process of how they, more than likely, somebody that's witnessing the process of how they've came to a point of enlightenment isn't going to charge you for it anyway. They're going to speak about it openly, and you'll be able to watch it on a YouTube channel. So, yeah. That said, and I'm going to broach this subject, and let me know in the comments what you guys think. So, how do you get people to overcome their fears? I mean, if from the outside, right? We overcome our fears on the inside. constantly doing things for ourselves that we might be afraid of. Unless you can tell somebody what their phobia is and then say, okay, well, try to do that thing to try and overcome that phobia. Are you going to pay me to tell you that? Right? I mean, psychotherapist is going to do the same thing, try and work to overcome your phobias. You could increase the amount of things to be for the general populace to be afraid of. I don't know. To force them to overcome that thing. Phobias are being overcome right now to a pretty large extent because there's not as much money in the system. People can't afford to do as much. Inflation is getting really high, so the Fed just dropped half a point last Friday, Thursday or Friday, something like that. Try and move more money in the system. But rates are dropping, and shipping rates have dropped significantly. My brother's a trucker, and so he's witnessing this where he's getting paid much less to deliver loads because consumer demand's down. It's not like there's less for him to take care of. It's not like things are getting cheaper. So if shipping rates go down and it's harder for truckers to deliver loads, that means their expenses go up. And if they were already living pretty close to their living expenses, now they're going farther into debt. Probably accruing more credit costs. Gross national product's not going up. Consumer demand's going down. So it's going to be pretty hard to sell coaching services, right? It's going to be hard to sell anything, right? I mean, I could do a reading for you. I could do an intuitive reading for you, but you'd be looking for guidance outside of yourself. The only way to really know guidance you need for yourself is to do some healing. Heal the heart space. And ultimately, if we're not working together, then, doing the things that we need to do for each other, then the system will continue to collapse, right? See a lot of one thing that I've noticed, especially about the United States, is the United States is the most judgmental nation. How can I say that? It's the least open-minded because we have the highest incarceration rate. I just wrote about this. We have 25% of the global population incarcerated. Now, some people say it's less, but that's the prison inmate. If you count all the jail cells in all the counties and federal penitentiaries, we have 25% of the global incarceration rate. A quarter of the Earth's population of inmates are in the United States, where the United States has less than 5% of the global population. That means that we cast judgment more frequently than any other nation. That's a problem. Religion has a tendency to cast judgment, right? To say what's good or bad, not thinking that people are going through a process and allow them to go through that process. Let it go. Now, speaking on that front, if we're getting ready to go through a big pole shift, let's look at the big picture. If we're getting ready to go through a big pole shift and the field's breaking down to where you're going to start to see more and more activity on the planet, fear rate will rise, so people have to overcome their fears. It says the last enemy, from a spiritual text, and I believe this, and this is what really dictates what people will and won't do. The last enemy to overcome is death. How do you overcome death? Well, you have to overcome the fear of death first. Because if you're not, right, we create our realities. If you're afraid of dying, then you'll do things that try to keep yourself living, right? I love that verse in the Bible. It says, if you give your life up for my sake, then you shall reach everlasting life. What does he mean by that? Become a sacrificial lamb, right? If you sacrifice yourself, to reach everlasting life? Maybe you reach a point of enlightenment doing that? I don't know. What do you guys think? So, in order to get people over their fears, maybe, we're just looking at a natural process for the group collective to overcome their fears. And we'll see more and more events and things happen in our life in a very short amount of time that will force people to overcome their fears of death so they can overcome it. Food shortages. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm asking the question. I'm not saying I have the answers, but yeah. Let's just get an oracle card. Let's see what oracle card. Let's get a couple of cards out to see intuitively that, right? Fear of death. Page of Swords. So we're listening kind of as a, what's going on in the group collective? Are people overcoming their fears? Because fear of trust is one of the main ones. Trusting each other to provide for one another and work together to build something together. I think that's a big one. That's the first one that comes to mind. Because think about all the structures that we have in society right now. We've got hierarchical systems of people that pay other people to do things for them for profit, to produce something for profit that usually feeds off society in a way that's fairly unhealthy. Building phones that trigger the dopamine response and get people pulled into their phones and away from interacting with each other doesn't seem like a healthy thing, right? Let's get another card. Empress. So, we have this loving energy around us that helps support healing and things that need to happen so that people trust one another and want to build together, I guess. Maybe. In a healthy way. Nine of Pentacles. Page of Wands. This is just feeling like exactly what I'm talking about, right? Just innovation. How we work together, because we don't want to work that way anymore. Nobody wants to work that way anymore. Nobody wants to work for one person's idea. I don't want you to work for my idea. I would love to support a group effort to build something that would benefit everybody, right? That's the goal, right? It doesn't have to be, we don't have to control one another. All we have to do is come up with ideas and build stuff together. I mean, that's how you build things that people want. Think about the houses that we have. They're all cookie cutter. We don't have craftsmen anymore that build things from their imagination, because in order to make enough money, you won't make enough money doing that, right? Unless somebody's got a lot of money to pay an architect to build something that's extravagant. Instead, all the money's going underground. I mean, if you guys are watching, like Jeff Bezos is building a giant underground bunker right next to his big ranch. So he can either go to space or go underground. All the billionaires don't want to be on the surface. So that's the first clue, right? Fear is taking hold. And if fear drives you underground or out into space, you're not overcoming fear of death. What does the oracle card say? I don't know. Unconditional love. Unconditional love comes in many forms, right? You gotta unconditionally love yourself before. And how do you show that love? Do you create fear to force people to overcome fear? Is that a form of unconditional love? Read, for those of you in the comments, before you make a comment on that, read chapter 11 of Revelations in the Bible. Just read that chapter and then tell me what you think. I'd be curious to see your opinion on that. Love you guys. Have a beautiful day. And love yourselves unconditionally. Regardless of what you've done, let it go. If you think it's bad, it really wasn't. Because even if we were causing harm to ourselves, we were doing it out of ignorance, right? Yeah. And look at other people that way. If they are causing harm to themselves or other people, they're doing it out of ignorance. Because the only person that we ever harm is ourselves. Because everything comes from here and then it goes back to here. So the energy that we put out there is what we get back. So love you guys. Have a great day.